in 2026, what it means for grantees and the entire San Diego region. And then at the end, we've saved some time for questions and answers for those questions that have been provided in advance. For those who provide questions today in the chat, we'll make sure that we include those in future FAQs on our website. So let me say on behalf of the Prebys Foundation team, we are truly grateful for your partnership. Before we dive in, I'd like to take an opportunity to introduce the program's team to you. Our program officers, Veronica Blea oversees our medical research, health, workforce, and some of our youth portfolios. Alexandra Kraszewski oversees our arts and culture, Tijuana River Valley, and Balboa Park master plan areas of work. Miriam Solis Coronel leads our healing through arts and nature, civic engagement, and also some of our youth success initiatives. And together, they serve as your primary partners throughout the grants process and will likely be your main points of contact through a grant process. Dr. Novian Yarber serves as our Senior Learning and Evaluation Officer, and he leads our learning and evaluation efforts, helping us to define outcomes and work with grantees to understand and measure impact. Victor Alcala, our grants administrator, manages the grants processes and payments, keeping everything moving and smoothly behind the scenes. Tiffany Thompson, as our executive administrator, manages all of our incoming inquiries and can connect you with the right people when you reach out to our team. Tess Koreski leads our storytelling and communications work, and she helps amplify the voices and visibilities of our partners and grantees. And finally, Fung Gaines, our newest face at the foundation as the business operations administrator, will be your first friendly face when you arrive or when you call on the phone. Before going any further, I'd like to welcome our President CEO, Grant Oliphant, to share some thoughts and to set the table for today's call. Take it away, Grant.
Thanks, Chris, and good morning, everybody. I think who everybody would really like to hear from is the programs team. So I'm going to try and hand this back over to you as quickly as possible. But I do want to say a few words about the context that we're in. And some of you may wonder, I know because you've asked in previous years, why do we spend time talking about that? And the reason is that we think a lot about the environment in which you're operating and we're operating and the challenges that we face that affect the collective work we're trying to do. And if we look at that moment right now, it hardly needs to be said, but it needs to be said that this is a time of incredible volatility, of economic uncertainty, of political tension, of growing pressure on the nonprofit sector. I think of deep moral struggles over what's happening in the country and how the country is or is not rising to meet that moment. And we know that demand and needs across our communities have increased significantly over the past year. We know that resources are stretched and trust in institutions, including philanthropy, is fragile. So these are national statements. They play out differently in every community, but they play out everywhere. And this isn't abstract. Our partners are feeling it pretty much every day. We know because we hear it from you. Our communities are feeling it. And in San Diego, which is a region that is incredibly full of creativity and innovation, we're also seeing widening gaps and systems that are under strain. The recent CEP survey just released yesterday, Center for Effective Philanthropy, in a survey nationally of nonprofits, found that nonprofit leaders actually characterize this as a time of existential threat because they're experiencing cuts at multiple levels, lagging fundraising in many cases, and growing demands for their services. So we know, on the one hand, that our sector is needed now more than ever, and we know that it is struggling how best to meet that moment. And we're keenly aware of that at Prebys as we think about this moment for ourselves. We know one thing that it calls for is courage. That means for us a willingness to step up and speak clearly about what we stand for and to support work that isn't always easy or comfortable, but that is absolutely necessary. It also means focus. We understand that in this moment in particular, we can't do everything, and that pretending that we can doesn't serve our partners or the community. Focus means making hard choices about where we invest, how we show up, and where we believe we can make the greatest difference over time. What is very apparent in this moment is that as resources have become strained, there is a clear need for structural change. Many of the systems that existed going into this period of disruption a year ago um, were already under strain and not working perfectly in various ways. And so this is clearly a time for us to think differently about how we meet the needs, not just of one moment, but of our society going forward. So I've given instructions to our team, the program team in particular, but across our entire platform, including on the impact investing front, to focus on three core things. One is to focus on how we help in San Diego strengthen the core. What that means for us is investing in the people and organizations that are doing the essential work of holding community together, building leadership capacity and long-term stability for everyone, and really providing the bedrock work of moving our San Diego community forward through arts, culture, science, research, medicine, health, and programs to serve our youth. So strengthening the core is a primary activity for us at the moment. The second is to continue solving big problems. One of the risks of a moment of change like this is that we stop thinking about the big opportunities and the big challenges that face our region and that involve not just individual organizations, but huge collaborations of us. And those collaborations of organizations across the region represent one of San Diego's greatest opportunities to move forward into a brighter future. So, as we have looked at our history of work over the past few years on issues like addressing the critical environmental health issues in the Tijuana River Valley, or the development of a downtown that is consonant with what San Diego needs and with the opportunity that it presents to be a center of arts and culture for our entire community, we still want to continue to solve those big problems and help San Diego move forward through the collective work of all of you. Then third is to invent the future, because one of the things that also gets lost in a time like this is a belief that we can spend scarce resources and time and energy on thinking about what the future ought to look like. And San Diego, actually, one of the things that makes this region so distinct is that it is a community that is constantly creating and innovating. That's true in the arts, it's true in the sciences, it's true in social programs. We're seeing it over and over in your work. And leaning into thinking through the ways in which we continue to invent the type of future here that we want to model, not just for San Diego, but for the rest of the country, is going to remain a major priority for us in the year ahead. So strengthening the core, solving big problems, inventing the future, these are the three big charges that I have given to our team. And I just want to say, before I hand it back to the team, that it is an incredible privilege for us to get to do this work anywhere at any time, but never more so than now, and never more so than in San Diego. I said when I got here 4 years ago, that I believed San Diego was a place that could model a new future for America. I actually believe that more today than I did then. And I partly believe it because I've seen what everybody on this call is doing and the many ways in which our civic sector is so key to the future of our community and the way in which people here understand it. I also just want to say that it's an incredible privilege to work with our Prebys team. You're in incredibly good hands with the fully developed program team that we now have in place. So, at its core, the Prebys Foundation continues to exist to create an inclusive, equitable, and dynamic future for all San Diegans. We are committed to our goal of creating a community in which everyone feels that they belong and does belong. And we understand that getting there in the next year will require focus and trade-offs, sometimes saying no and thinking longer term about the relationships that we are engaged in so that we can meet the requests that many of you have made from us in terms of the relationships that you would like to have. And our aim in doing this is to show up for you with clarity and courage and commitment to the long term. So that's the direction we're setting, and I'm confident in the work ahead, in part because we are going to do it together. And with that, I'm going to hand it back to the programs team and Dr. Emily Young to continue.
Well, thank you, Grant, and good morning, everyone. I'm going to talk a bit about where Prebys is going more specifically in 2026. And, 5 years into the inception of Prebys Foundation, we've learned enough in our grant making to really deepen our focus in areas where we think we can make the greatest impact. And in our first years of our grant making, we really cast a wide net to get a sense of who was out there and what the need was. And over the past few years, we have built our team with more internal expertise and learning capacity so that we could be more deliberate in where we invest our resources. And so in 2026, the Prebys Foundation is moving from breadth to depth and becoming more focused and more intentional and more aligned in our grant making so that we can be stronger long-term as a partner to San Diego County. And this evolution reflects what we've learned since the beginning of our grant making in 2020 and our responsibility to act with clarity and courage, as Grant said, in a real volatile moment for nonprofits and communities. Now, one of the things that we've consistently received feedback around is the need for longer term grants with more flexibility. And we have heard you. And in response to that, we are looking at ways to make deeper commitments, understanding that there will be trade-offs with that, with fewer open calls and more invitation-driven grant initiatives. And in turn, we're focusing on where we believe our funding can make the greatest impact, as well as in areas where we face some of the most intractable challenges, as Grant pointed out, things like the Tijuana River Valley and reimagining San Diego's downtown. Those challenges and opportunities as a region. Now, we're also taking steps to more intentionally align our grant making with how and when we bring together community partners, as well as our communications and our investments. And ultimately, what we're aiming for is far greater coherence in our efforts across the Prebys Foundation to optimize our impact across the region. So what does this mean for our grant making? Again, what we're talking about is fewer calls, open calls for proposals through grant making initiatives, more proactive, that is, Prebys staff initiated, invitation-driven funding, with an emphasis on leaning into places where we've already found momentum and aiming to have more flexible and longer duration funding versus one-year programs. And with that, we also hope to deepen our grantee relationships with Prebys. Now, we recognize that there's a lot of, volatility and uncertainty out there. And during the pandemic, we learned about the importance of acting with agility to respond rapidly to changing conditions on the ground. And while that remains very important to us, we're also looking at how we can, how we can address big problems that take more of a medium to longer term focus, as well as inventing the future in the areas of arts and culture, biomedical research, health and well-being, and youth success. So you're probably asking, okay, how can I ensure that my organization's work in the community can get known to Prebys? And so what we have developed that you can find online is you can start by completing our brief online inquiry form. We review every submission on a weekly basis and we log it into our system so that your work stays visible to our team. And with that said, you don't have to do this more than once. We look for alignment with our focus areas and our current strategies. And if there is a fit, a team member will reach out to get connected. We want to underline that not being invited is not a judgment of worth. And just because there is not an immediate opportunity for a grant this year, that does not mean that there will not be an opportunity for future support. So I'm going to turn this back to Chris now. Thank you.
Thanks, Emily. One of the things that's changed about the organization, in our early days, grant making was the tool. And now grant making is one tool among many that we've developed at Prebys. So even non-grantees now may benefit from many new efforts that are being supported by the Prebys team. So let me just walk through a handful of these, and these are ever growing. But these are ways that we want to support the whole nonprofit ecosystem. We've done scholarships with AFP so that those who are working for organizations that can't afford training or participation in AFP can have it. Also with the Cal Nonprofit Conference, we've recently set groups there. We are creating the Nonprofit Sustainability Initiative along with other funders. And the idea behind that is it's a multi-funder effort to support nonprofit collaboration anywhere from back office work to sharing resources up to and including mergers. So that will be stood up in the coming months. Bridge is a group that we have pulled together, and it's an effort designed to strengthen a cohort of 8 leadership and capacity building organizations. We believe that the organizations that are providing support to you in leadership development and capacity building need to themselves be strong. And so we've been making an intentional effort to strengthen those organizations. We'll be supporting a new Balboa Park master plan. That includes revenue generating efforts that can ensure that our crown jewel is well cared for generations to come. We have been active in advocacy across a number of key health, arts, medical research, and nonprofit media areas. And we've also leaned into legal support for organizations as well as for refugees and immigrants. We have been elevating nonprofit voices through our nonprofit media initiatives. We've launched a conscious leadership program, and currently over 20 nonprofit CEOs from the region are working through a 9-month program. So we are investing in nonprofit leadership development. And that's also one of the things that's one of the first cuts that nonprofits have to make, one of the tough conversations that you have to have when budget dollars need to be saved. We have partners with the Nonprofit Institute at USD to ensure that their training costs for nonprofit leaders and board members have remained affordable. We've been partnering with the Unity Fund and the Multi-Foundation United for San Diego grants. We've been working with bringing new dollars into the region from statewide and national funders. And as Emily mentioned, we've been supporting Tijuana River Valley efforts in the area of research and advocacy. And this is a growing list. So we were strictly limited to grant making earlier in our development due to having a very small program and overall staff size, and needing to launch initiatives to begin learning about what was most impactful and best aligned with the goals of the foundation, and ultimately what Conrad Prebys wanted us to do. We now have much more clarity around what is most impactful in the near term, and a team including programs, learning, evaluation, communications, and ops, who you met earlier, and you'll also see their full bios on the website, than we did just a year or two ago. And thus we have more tools available to strengthen the entire nonprofit ecosystem beyond strictly grant making. I'll hand back to Emily.
Let's talk a little bit more about specific focus areas of our grant making. And how can you best determine alignment with Prebys funding areas? One of the things that we strongly recommend that you do is to review our FAQs on the website, as well as core funding areas where we are working. And as we shared earlier, if after reviewing our website, you feel you might be well aligned with what we are supporting, you can fill out a brief inquiry form on our website, and we'll set you up with a meeting with a member of our program team to talk through any opportunities with you. And we will maintain the information shared and commit to consideration for related upcoming grant cycles so that that information lives on in our database. And unless your mission or your program focus changes, you will not need to repeat this inquiry process. We value your time and resources, so we're aiming to be as clear as we can about where our funding priorities are and are not. And these are our current focus areas. So this isn't forever. This is over the next few years. And if you don't see yourself in the following areas, your organization's efforts are probably not well aligned with where we're going to be funding right now. So we have 4 program areas, the first of which is youth success. And there we're focusing on workforce, leadership, and foster care. The next area is health and well-being. And there we are focusing on access to healthcare as well as non-clinical approaches to well-being. The next focus area is in medical research. And here we're exploring right now how to support shared needs and opportunities across the biomedical research community to better position this sector and enhance our region's competitiveness. And finally, in arts and culture, but of course not least, we're exploring how we can help to expand access and audiences as well as revenue streams. And we're also looking at opportunities for arts and culture activations to advance civic revitalization. You've already heard about some of the intractable challenges and big opportunities for the region that we plan to continue investing in, including civic revitalization and using arts and culture in Balboa Park to reactivate downtown San Diego and our civic core. Other areas include local news and nonprofit journalism, and as Chris described, our deep interest in nonprofit leadership and capacity building, and of course, the Tijuana River Valley, for which there has been some forward progress due to some amazing work that community advocacy groups and researchers are doing, and much more needs to be done to find a permanent solution to this cross-border sewage crisis. And with that, we're going to now turn to the responses to pre-submitted questions and answers. And I'm going to pivot that back to Chris for now.
Thanks, Emily. We are now joined by Crystal Page, our Vice President of Communications, who's been reviewing a lot of the questions and finding some common themes. So thank you to all who provided these questions. Given the number of folks on the call today, which is about 500, we'll address some common themes, and rest assured that if we don't get to yours, we'll do our best to include this on our FAQ page on our website in the coming days. So Crystal, I'll hand to you.
Thank you, Chris. Good morning, everyone. First, in the chat, you will see the link to the FAQs. We will include this in our twice monthly newsletter, but in case you'd like to have it up, please feel free to click there. We did receive a number of questions, and as Chris said, we've compiled those for you. So let's just start with this one. Chris or Emily, whoever would like to take it. Can you provide insights into collaborative or partnership grants? Thank you.
Yeah, I'll tackle this one. We've been definitely leaning into collaborative and partnership grants, and you'll see that work in our Healing Through Arts and Nature. That's a cohort of over 50 different organizations that have gone through a process of learning together, finding common measurements and supporting each other. Also in the area of foster youth, we have created the United for Youth along with Lucky Duck and the Copley Foundation, where we're pooling our resources. And in that, there are 5 lead agencies and about another 40 that are supporting the work of United for Youth. And then also in the Tijuana River Valley, there's a host of organizations, anywhere from the YMCA to Surf Rider and a number of others who are working together. So we find that to tackle certain issues or certain challenges, you can't just have a one-stop shop. You need to have a larger body who's going to work together. And that's been a very successful recipe for addressing some of the bigger challenges that maybe transcend what one organization could do on their own.
Thank you, Chris. The next question submitted was, how does the foundation think about the relationship between general opportunity support and programmatic support?
I'll take this one. And that is such a great question. And as you may know, we provide a combination of general operating support and programmatic support grants. And just the basic difference between them is that general operating support is unrestricted and programmatic support is for areas where there's a clear focus of activities that we're supporting. I will say that while we make programmatic grants that have more of a clear focus, when we make those grants, we also try to be mindful of the fact that there are operating costs, there's overhead that goes into the work of every nonprofit organization. And so when they are budgeting for any kind of grant, we're going to consider that and we're going to support that, whether it is a programmatic grant or it is a general operating support grant.
Thanks, Emily. The next one we have is, how, if at all, are you thinking about supporting organizations that are in a period of growth or transition?
Yeah. That's a fantastic question, because one of the, if you've been reliant or if you've had, as a meaningful part of your budget, federal, state, city, county support, chances are you've got some changes to your organization and you need to address structure, you need to address partnerships, programs. So we've got a few things there. First and foremost, that's kind of the basis behind standing up the Nonprofit Sustainability Initiative. I mentioned it earlier, but just really quickly, the Nonprofit Sustainability Initiative is something that is happening in about a dozen other markets throughout the United States. And the idea behind it is where funders come together, they pool their dollars with the express purpose of helping organizations transcend a period of growth or change, looking at their business models. So it might include professional support. Maybe it's legal, maybe it's financial, maybe it's negotiating or working together on a merger or some other deep shared work together. So that organization, you'll see more to come on that. But we think that those organizations that need to make some adjustments right now are going to need some support. And so rather than kind of handling those as one-off, we're going to stand up the Nonprofit Sustainability Initiative San Diego to do that. We're doing that in partnership with Catalyst and Alliance Healthcare Foundation. And we hope to invite many other funders into that. And also we're doing capacity building and leadership support. So that's happening by us sponsoring, supporting, providing resources for the 8 organizations that compose our bridge cohort. And those include, a number of the ones that you would expect, like Fieldstone and LEAD and RISE and Walking Shield and Chicano Federation and HOPE. And I know I'm forgetting some here, pardon.
The Nonprofit Institute and LEAD San Diego.
And LEAD San Diego.
And Amplified Impact Partners.
And Amplified Impact. Thank you, Emily. So we're supporting those organizations because those organizations support your organizations individually. And as I mentioned, also in the leadership support, we are currently doing our first cohort of a conscious leadership program. We hope to have more of those in the future.
Thank you. I'm noticing in the FAQs, but also in the pre-submitted questions, there's questions coming up, and it seems to be about organizational support if you're newer or older. So the way the question's framed is, how does Prebys assess newer projects and smaller nonprofits versus the support that it gives to established anchor institutions?
Yeah, that's a perennial question. And I'll just say first and foremost that at Prebys, we believe that the strength of our region lies in the breadth of organizations and institutions that we have that are really working in common purpose for the good of the San Diego region. So they can be large and small. They can be older or they can be newer. All of those that are contributing to an inclusive, equitable, and dynamic future for all San Diegans. That's what we're committed to. And what we look at really is, where is their alignment with our priorities? Where is their strategic fit? That matters more than organizational size or age or budget.
Thanks, Emily. Next, we have, as Prebys develops awareness of the nonprofit organization challenges, how can you be a voice for nonprofits with major funders and foundations?
Yeah. Yes, 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 yes. We know that there's a lot of challenges out there. One of the things that, I think we built a little muscle around during COVID was that funders began talking more. I would say that's happening significantly more now. As a matter of fact, we have biweekly calls that are led by Catalyst, and that features, typically at least a dozen funders. And so we are talking together on a regular basis of what are the challenges we're seeing. We're collaborating on funding. So hopefully you're seeing some of that. It's really important that we also attract funding from outside the region, and that's been a keen focus for us. So we've been having conversations with large national and statewide foundations and doing our best to invite new dollars into the region. But I would say that your foundation family here in San Diego has been working together very, very closely and sharing information and sharing resources. And I think you're going to see a lot more of that in the days to come. So if there's a silver lining to these challenges that we're seeing in the sector, it's that philanthropy hears you and are trying to be as collaborative as possible to help as many as we can.
Thank you, Chris. Next up, we have, how does the foundation balance immediate needs versus long-term change?
Well, I'll return to what our CEO, Grant Oliphant, opened up with, and that is that we really recognize that it's very important to protect the people and the organizations that are doing the essential work of moving our community forward. And that is something that we're certainly continuing to focus on, while at the same time not shrinking from big opportunities and big challenges that we as a region face, and philanthropy can play a role in helping to catalyze action and solutions. And finally, we are very much interested in, given all the disruption and the, I think, growing recognition that there are many things that have been broken for a long time, and maybe they're even more broken now, we have an unprecedented opportunity to rethink the future and invent it for ourselves. So that's how we're really looking at balancing the immediate and the long term.
Thanks, Emily. Next, we have, how do you decide what issues or sectors to prioritize?
Yeah, thank you. A lot has changed, but a lot hasn't changed. Our 4 pillars still remain, and those were things that were near and dear to Conrad Prebys's heart. And that is youth success, that is health and well-being, that is arts and culture, and that is medical research. So those things are not changing. There may be different emphases in each depending on what we're trying to focus on, but those are the big 4 areas. We also are looking where philanthropy can be catalytic, and we're focused on critical civic infrastructure. We've talked about downtown, we've talked about Balboa Park. We're also very focused on nonprofit capacity, journalism, civic spaces. So our bigger overarching goal is to create a dynamic, inclusive, and equitable San Diego for everyone who calls this home. And so those activities are all very much in service of that larger focus that we have.
Great, thank you, Chris. And I do see some hands popping up. We are going to go through a couple more of the pre-submitted questions, but feel free to drop it in the chat and we'll at least take note of it if we can, or follow up. The next one up is how do civic infrastructure and cross-sector partnership fit into our overall strategy? I know you've talked a bit about that, Chris and Emily, but if you want to say a bit more.
Sure. I mean, we recognize that we're at a dicey moment in the United States and in San Diego. There's a lot of polarization and division and a lot of fear. And when you're in a place like that, it's really easy to retreat and just think small or not think expansively about the future and what's possible. And so when we look at civic infrastructure, what we really see is an expansive opportunity to come together and bring different kinds of parties together to envision a future, for instance, for our downtown that is a place that's anchored through arts and culture and a variety of different kinds of arts and cultural activations and more vibrant economic activity, because we're committed to redeveloping and re-envisioning what the downtown could look like for the San Diego region. And obviously, none of that can be done without really strong cross-sector partnerships, from nonprofit organizations to philanthropy to government and business. None of that stuff can be accomplished alone. So we look at civic infrastructure and cross-sector partnerships as places where we have an opportunity to really take on those big challenges and those big opportunities. Another example of that would be in the Tijuana River Valley. There we have currently, we're supporting a coalition of 50 plus organizations that are working together in an unprecedented way with researchers from San Diego State University and Scripps Institution of Oceanography to really help that research reframe what's happening here, which is a major public health threat to South County, which is the need for government on both sides of the border to really address this transboundary sewage issue, which at the end of the day is not rocket science. We're talking about sewage infrastructure, and we're talking about the health and well-being that all communities deserve, including South County.
Thanks, Emily. We're going to do one more of the pre-submitted questions, and then we're noticing some trends in the Q&A, so we'll try to address a couple of those. So first, this one was submitted about AI. So how is AI impacting the Prebys Foundation in 2026 and beyond? Does the Prebys Foundation have an AI policy in place?
Yeah, thanks, Crystal. We've asked AI to create a policy for us so that our AI can talk to your AI and then your AI can answer back. No, we're trying very hard to avoid all that. We do have a policy in place, and our intent is to keep it human. So we use AI as a tool to help us synthesize and our research and learning, but we do have policies in place to make sure that our AI isn't talking to your AI and back and forth, and that decisions are not being made on grants by AI. They are being made by humans on our program team, who you've met earlier in the call. So AI is a tool, but it's not going to do our work for us.
Thank you, Chris. And just because I noticed it's popped up in the chat a few times, if you are an existing grantee, you are in our system. So unless your work has changed, then that's when you'd fill out the intake form. But our program officers are aware of your work. So just want to answer that to make sure folks are clear on that. So the things that seem to be coming up multiple times in the Q&A, the first one of those is, does this change or what we're talking about today, does this indicate that Prebys is primarily focusing on working with nonprofits that have already previously been funded?
Chris, did you want to take that one too?
Yeah, happy to take that. So we will not have a bias against organizations that we haven't worked with yet. So we have a very robust inquiry process. So even if we haven't worked together, there is an opportunity for, for you to be known by Prebys in the area that you're working in. Our program officers have many, many hours available each month. So once you fill out that inquiry process, it's quite likely that you'll have a meeting with a program officer within just probably a few weeks. And at that point, you can not make your case, but you can share with us what you're working on and the types of things that you're looking for support for. And we'll be able to give you some feedback there on whether it aligns or not. But we'll certainly keep that within our system so that anytime, for example, if you have an arts and culture proposal, we will keep that in mind for any and all arts and culture proposal initiatives that we have in the coming days. So there is an opportunity to be known if you are not a current grantee. So rest assured, the door is open.
Thank you, Chris. And just a reminder, because it was noted in the Q&A, we fund throughout the county. So whether you're in East County, North County, we should have our new directory up shortly on the website so you all can see, all the great partners we've worked with over the years. But please remember, we fund across the county. Chris and Emily, this is probably where we'll wind down, but I have noticed that there are some questions coming in about the scope of our work. So our funding pillars may seem broader, but this feels narrow to some folks. So can you just talk a little bit about, one, the timeline for the year, but two, how do those pillar areas relate to the focus overall of what we're doing in 26?
Thank you for that question. So, this year, what we're beginning the year with, just like we did last year, is we're really assessing what we've learned from our grant making last year and the year before to inform our focus in the upcoming few years. And we'll be doing that over the next few months before we then move toward our invitation-driven grant making that we'll be doing. And we will be making grants throughout the year. In terms of the relationship between the pillars that we talked about in arts and culture, biomedical research, health and well-being, and youth success, we really see the other areas that we're supporting around nonprofit capacity and leadership and revitalization of the regions downtown and the Tijuana River Valley and nonprofit journalism. Those are issues that are cross-cutting with the areas that are pillar focus areas for Prebys Foundation. So if you're looking at revitalization of downtown, for instance, we very much recognize the strong connection between that and the role of arts and culture in reinvigorating and reimagining spaces. When you look at the Tijuana River Valley, we very much recognize that the health and well-being of hundreds of thousands of San Diego County residents it's affected by pollution from the Tijuana River Valley, as well as youth success and the fact that a lot of young people in South County don't have the same access to youth programming around the beach and outdoors because of air pollution from the Tijuana River Valley. And of course, with nonprofit news and journalism, we recognize that in any of the areas that we work, if people don't have access to good information, trusted information about the issue areas where we work, then they're not able to engage and they're not able to make decisions that are going to make the kind of difference that we're all seeking to advance for a better San Diego region. So we believe that nonprofit journalism is critical to a better informed and engaged San Diego.
Thank you, Emily. As we wind down, I do think it's important. First of all, thank you all so much for taking the time to be on with us. We saw a couple of folks asking about the inquiry forms. Chris and Emily, I know you talked a bit about the program officers and things like that, and it sounds like a concern by at least a couple of folks is being expressed about the transactional nature of forms. I will say, as the VP of Communication, we are actually trying to streamline things so that when you send something, you get an auto reply with some of the basics, and then our program team's going through those. So if anything, we're trying to make sure we respond to you with greater clarity. But Chris and Emily, can you speak to um, why we're moving in this direction in terms of we do not want it to feel transactional,
Yeah.
but is there anything else either one of you would like to add?
Yeah, it does feel transactional. Absolutely. But the inquiry form, if you go into it and look at it, you're really just going to answer a very small handful of questions about what area you're working in, what's your contact information, so that we can avoid some of that back and forth emails and that we can get you connected with a program officer sooner rather than later. So the whole purpose of this really, really brief form is so that our staff can connect you with the right program officer to have the right conversation about your program and the ideas that you have. So it's really just a step one, and it's not the end of the steps. It's the first step in order to build or develop that relationship that you have with Prebys. So it's designed to accelerate the interaction as opposed to be transactional.
Okay. Well, we want to thank you all. We know that we are a lean team, and we will continue to do our best to reply, provide clarity for all those asking about specific initiatives like the Tijuana River. Please know we will continue to have spaces to talk about those things and share them online. But I will turn it back to Chris and Emily to wind us down. And thank you all again.
Yeah, thank you all for taking the time out of, I'm sure, is a really busy and hectic schedule. And we really appreciate your being with us today and for your engagement and your candor. We really appreciated the questions. They were very helpful to us. And please know that your questions really help to guide us in the way we operate and the way we work with the community. Again, where to find the resources that we talked about today. We have that FAQ. It is on our website, and we'll continue to update it as more questions come in. And you can also find our contact information and office hours on our website. And we just really want to reaffirm that we are committed to being a partner with community organizations that are working tirelessly in our community for a better San Diego County. And we have a shared commitment, I know all of us, to a better region. And so with that, we're acting with the intention now so that we can be a stronger partner in the long term. Thank you, everyone.